Hello everybody! Today I would like to show you the work we did about Charles Darwin. And we can learn together about Charles Darwin because he was a very interesting man. And if you love nature, you will totally enjoy this project. So for this project, we use this book. It's called Who Was Charles Darwin from the Who Was book series. I will link it in the description so you can get it too. And it's wonderfully written with lots of images and very easy to understand. So I will just read the first little bit just to give you a little bit of an overview of who Charles Darwin was. Who was Charles Darwin? Charles Darwin took a 5-year trip around the world on a ship called the Beagle, but he liked staying home best of all. He lived in a small English village where he raised pigeons, played with his children, and potted in his garden. Although he lived a quiet life, Charles Darwin started a revolution of thought. People have always wondered how life on Earth began. When Charles Darwin lived, most people in Europe and America believed God created the entire world in 6 days, just as it says in the Bible. But Charles Darwin was not most people. The Beagle voyage taught him to be a true scientist, to look closely at nature, question everything, and think in a new way about how life on Earth started. He showed how living things could naturally change or evolve over a long period of time. Was Charles Darwin a genius? He didn't think so. Charles thought of himself as simply a scientist. And like all good scientists, Charles was curious. So curious, he was never afraid to ask hard questions, and he looked for answers based on what he saw. Charles Darwin knew his ideas would shock people. They did. Yet today, scientists accept evolution as a fact. Charles Darwin is as important as ever. Charles Darwin changed history. How did he do it? And then there is written how he grew up, how he started his voyages, where he traveled to, how he discovered things, and how he observed them and what he learned from all those things he saw and explored. So this is the book. So the first thing we did is we just wrote down a little bit of general information about Charles Darwin, and then we move on to different aspects of his life. So who was Charles Darwin? Charles loved nature, but his dad wanted him to be a doctor. Charles was able to go on a ship to travel the world, study nature, animals and plants. He came across the Galapagos Islands and a lot of new creatures. The Galapagos Islands lie in the Pacific Ocean, 600 miles west of Ecuador. They consist of 13 islands. The word Galapagos means tortoise in Spanish. Unique animals that live nowhere else on Earth because they're so isolated from the mainlands. So here we have a little picture of a Galapagos tortoise and also one of a marine iguana. Those animals only live on the Galapagos Islands. So let's have a quick look where they are located. So if we look on the map, the Galapagos Islands are right over here on the west side of South America. Here they are. And here is a little bit of a closer picture of the Galapagos Islands, the beautiful island group here. For the next part of our work, we wrote something about species and breeds. So a species is a group of similar plants or animals. For example, there are many different breeds of dogs, but all dogs belong to the same species. So as an example here, this is getting just a teeny tiny little bit complicated, and it is more complicated than we have written down here, but to make it easier to understand. So basically, species of dogs or canine is called Canis familiaris. And actually, the canine family also includes many wolves, coyotes, and jackals, and wild dogs. But for the family of dogs, we have different breeds. For example, we have an Italian Greyhound, we have a German Shepherd, Afghan Hound, Yorkshire Terrier, Chow Chow, Shih Tzu, and many, many more. Then for fun, we also researched some chickens, and actually the scientific name or the species name is Gallus domesticus, which is really funny. And we just researched different breeds here. So we have a Silky, a Wyandotte, Isa Brown, Polish, and Frizzle. And then we also have cows or cattle, basically, which are bovine, the bovine family. And the scientific name is Bos taurus. And different breeds are Highland cow, Brahmin, Jersey, and Holstein Friesian. So you can also do some research on this yourself. You can totally go into more detail about researching about what exactly species and breeds and animal families are, or plant families even, and plant species, and different varieties of those. Because let's say we have roses, there are many different kinds of roses, and all of them have different names as well. Here we have a picture of a dog and a lion there as well. That's actually not from the canine family. The lions and tigers are with the cat family, the feline. Here in this part of our work, we went through the whole book and we tried to search some things that are really good characters for a scientist. Here's the lions and the tigers, and there's the dogs. All right, let's have a look. We have scientist character traits. With his own eyes, Charles had seen that changes on Earth could take place through natural forces like volcanoes. Wasn't it possible then that plants and animals could also change through natural force? Charles also talked to people who worked with animals and plants. Charles asked questions, listened carefully, and looked closely. So then we went through the book and we wrote down lots and lots of character traits. So he definitely liked to read, he asked questions, he listened carefully, he looked closely, he was watching birds, he was taking walks. He had attention to detail. He organized his books and collections. He found seashells at the top of hills. And this is why he thought that at some point that area or that hill was underwater. Otherwise it wouldn't have seashells on it. He experienced volcanic eruptions and an earthquake. He's also very, very curious. He collected stones and bird eggs. He loved doing experiments. He studied nature. He collected beetles, insects, flowers, and sea creatures. He loved exploring. He examined small creatures under the microscope. And he found and collected fossils. And on the last part of our project, we had a look at the map and followed the travels of Charles Darwin. So Charles traveled the world for 5 years on a ship called the Beagle. So he went all around the world. On December 27th, 1831, the Beagle set sail. They started in England, which is right over there, in Plymouth. The first stop was Cape Verde Islands, which are over here, near Africa. They went to South America, stopping, so South America is down here, and they stopped all the way down here. They went to South America, stopping in Argentina, Patagonia, Rio de Janeiro, Uruguay, and Buenos Aires. They sailed around the southernmost tip of South America through the Strait of Magellan, which is right down there. They sailed up the western coast of South America, up here. The next stop was the Galapagos Islands. They are over here. Then they went to Tahiti, to New Zealand and Australia. So they went over here this way and came out here approximately. So Tahiti, New Zealand, Australia is down here. Charles enjoyed an elephant ride on the island of Mauritius. So Mauritius is over here, near Madagascar, around South Africa, which is the Cape of Good Hope, and back to England. So after they went to Madagascar, around South Africa, and back home to England. So this is how he traveled the world. This is definitely a very interesting and fascinating book to read. So you can get this book and have a read of it, or do some internet research and do your own project on Charles Darwin. He had a very, very interesting life, and he discovered many, many things in nature. It's very interesting. Okay, see you in the next video. Bye.